Alafia Ekaba, everyone. This is Osaremi, Lanloke broadcasting live. Today is July the 13th, I hope, 2011. Thank you all for joining us. We're just waiting for Javier C. to come in. I would like to do the prayer with him here. So I am going to play a couple commercials, and then I will be right back as soon as he gets here. So please just hold on momentarily. He should be calling in any minute. I do pray for your patience.
Join Omo Obatala Egbe for the 14th Annual International Orisha Conference, October 28th through 30th, at the Hudson Valley Resort and Spa. The weekend includes uplifting and educational workshops, panels, and presentations. For registration and vending, call 718-841-7886. That's 718-841-7886. Or visit www.omoobatalaegbe.org. Connect with spirit, tradition, and empowerment. Ashe.
All right. Thank you very much. Abba has called in. Alafia Kabiesi, how are you doing?
Ekale Bogwenya, Egbe Omo OORadio. Good evening.
Okay. I do pray. We are going to go ahead and get started with the prayer. And then we will get started with the show.
Ashe.
Ami Tutu, Ile Tutu, Ona Tutu, Tutu Ladoye. Olodumare Ajuba, Bobo Eku Oluwate Molekwe, Olodumare Bara Sarun, Mojuba, Bobo Babanla Tiyanla, Mojuba Bobo Eku Temi, Mojuba Bobo Eku Te Bobo Enya, Mojuba Bobo Wodiku. Kinka Mashe Oni Kiselu Rekeji, Kinka Mashe Alasin Toyo Adeyendi, Kinka Mashe Oba Etebi Yike Alasho Yotunji, Kinka Mashe Yekin, Kinka Mashe Yaloshi Semi Oyabi, Kinka Mashe Bobo Aworo, Kinka Mashe Bobo Babalosha, Tialosha, Kinka Mashe Bobo Babalawa, Tianifa, Kinka Mashe Bobo Amoa, Tia Petebi, Kinka Mashe Bobo Rafashin, Kinka Mashe Bobo Kawani left. Joel, Mokia like Mokio, Mokio Kosu, Mokio Su, Mokio Batala, Mokin Fabu, Beige Mokio, Mokia Moja, Mokio Shun, Mokin Shango, Mokin Babalue, Mokia Gantu, Mokin Risho, Mokin Bobo Risha. Joel Kosi, Kukosi Arun, Kosi Ayo, Kosi Alpha, Kosi Ona, Kosi Burubu, Kosi Lapa, Kosi Kiko, Kosi Araye. Joel, Jackie Mother, Ton, Wai Ray, Ray, Joko, Rail, Be Rail, Corin, Ready, the Watch Loki, Rail, Mar Rail, Let the Red Son One. Joel Funi Ray, Alafia, Ton, More Valley, Fight, Segun, La Wall, Worry that I see in New June. Translating, I summoned all of the ancestors, my personal ancestors, the ancestors of everyone who is present, the ancestors of His Royal Majesty, Oba Adeji, Dialasho, Oyotunji. I have asked that nothing bad happens to any of our spiritual leaders, any of our priests, any of our fathers and mothers in mystery, any of the wives of the students of Orumila, or any of our priests. I saluted all of the deities of water, fire, air, and earth. I asked for all negativity to be kept away from OORadio, away from His Royal Majesty, Oba Adeji, Alasho Yotunji, and away from myself and all of our listeners. I ask that blessings come from the heavens, blessings come from earth, blessings come from men, from women, from children, blessings come from the bottom of the ocean to the top of the mountain, that we receive Ire, which is good luck, that we receive Alafia, which is peace, Ileta, which is good health, wisdom, knowledge, understanding, that we all do this in the character, honor of the ancestors in the Orishas. Today I'm here to do this broadcast about Oyotunji African Village, and I'm asking for this to be a very healing conversation. I'm asking that my listeners have an open mind and an open heart, and whatever you've heard about Oyotunji, you can't believe everything. And I'm asking that my listeners have an open mind to listen to what His Highness is going to say and what we are going to discuss this evening without judgment, without preconceived notions, which I understand that will be hard to do, but to do it for the betterment of all of us. And I say this and I ask for this in the honor of our ancient ancestors. I ask for this in honor of our ancestors who have we've lost over here, those who have given their blood, their sweat, and their tears for the preservation and the upliftment and the carrying on of Yoruba culture and tradition here in the New World, including His Majesty Oyotunji African Adefunmi II, Ibaratu, including Babalosha Orishamola Awolowo, Ibaibai, including Orisha Tunwache, Ibaibai Tunu, including all of the priests that are buried in Oyotunji, including all of the priests who have worked and who have struggled and who have given so much to the restoration and the cultural revolution here in the United States. Ashe.
Ashe.
His Highness, before I get started with this interview, I would like to address my intent of this interview. We do have callers on the line who have questions, and I will be getting into those questions after we get into our conversation for a bit, so I do see you with your hand raised already.
Very well.
But I would like to, first of all, discuss my intent for this interview. Over the years, I've had people who have never set foot on the soil of Oyotunji make judgments about Oyotunji that, to me, some of them are unfair, some of them are unjust, and some of them are completely false. And so that's why I wanted to do this interview, to maybe clear up some things and to also to have Oyotunji, or have you, in honor of Oyotunji, and you represent Oyotunji as to what we need to be doing now. There's so much division in our community. The Lukumi versus the traditional, the traditional versus the Condomblé, the this versus that, and I'm tired of it. And it's like, okay, what gives? We have got to start honoring each other and everything that everyone has brought to Yoruba culture and Yoruba tradition to make it and to allow it to be what it is today. A lot of people don't understand the history of your father and what he did for the cultural restoration movement and what he did for Yoruba culture and Yoruba tradition. At least I would say more than half of the people who are in this tradition are initiated either through Oyotunji line, first generation, second generation, or third generation. So I would like for you, His Majesty, to talk about some of the things that Oyotunji has done for the cultural restoration movement. And before I do that, I would like to ask anyone who is going to call in, as per protocol for our culture, we ask everyone to be very, very respectful with their questions, and we ask them to address His Highness as His Royal Majesty or Kabiesi as protocol. We do invite you to call in. I'm gonna ask a few questions, and maybe about 20 or 30 minutes into the interview, then I'll start taking some questions. So if you would like to ask some questions of Kabiesi, you can call in to 347-934-0126, 347-934-0126, and press the number 1. So, His Majesty, first I would like for you to start off and talk about the history and the legacy that your father has left for us here in the New World, and his accomplishments in the restoration movement.
Indeed. His Majesty Oba Osageman Adefunmi I has a long legacy of contributions to the development and the implementation of any idea of African organized religion in the United States. I can only quote what has been told to me by the elders, and speaking with the great Chief Medahochi Ibaratu, he once said that during those times he was interested in where he came from, and this is obviously in the 50s, and he was not able to find any books, writings, any knowledge of African culture until someone introduced him to a gentleman by the name of Baba Osageman, who later on became the first king of Oyotunji Village and the king of the Yoruba of North America. And Baba Osageman had a temple, of course, in New York, there on 125th Street, and that particular temple was dedicated to the Orisha Shango. And from that temple sprang pretty much everything that we know in terms of culture about Yoruba Americans today. Of course, we know many people travel to West Africa, including myself, and to the islands in Cuba, but then we have to also understand that there was a self-determination effort, or a kujichagulia, as they call it, put forth by the African Americans to develop their own system of traditional African culture, and they decided that it was necessary because any people who live in a particular geographical locale worship the forces of nature according to where they live. And so African Americans hadn't done that, and that particular culture and religion would be centered around their collective experience as African descendants in this country. And so His Majesty Oba Osejumen went on to develop that particular temple, and then realizing at the particular time that people did not know exactly where he was coming from in terms of culture and tradition. Many people thought he was trying to put forth basically a religion. And so at the time, he would go out on the streets of Harlem, and amongst the voices of Malcolm X and those other freedom fighters who were speaking, His Majesty used to set up in front of a place called a Chock Full of Nuts. It's a very famous, I believe, coffee shop there in Harlem. Of course, I've never seen it myself. But nonetheless, he would go there and he would get on his soapbox and start to articulate the traditions of our ancestors in the street.